after 2017's sim racer renaissance, 2018 looks like it's more about the arcade racer. Gravel is the first out of the gate as Milestone look to take advantage of their Unreal Engine 4 license and broaden their horizons with a new type of racing game for their portfolio. There's a little bit of everything here, from point-to-point racing, through idyllic scenery, through to track racing, but this is a game that feels like it's searching for its own identity. Gravel's biggest problem is that it just feels a little bit bland. The Off-Road Masters competition that runs as a faux TV show on the game's made-up Gravel channel wouldn't be out of place stuck on ITV4's schedule on a Sunday afternoon. It's got some knowingly cheesy commentary, there's the generic rock/metal soundtrack, and the Scrapyard Challenge-esque boss characters that you'll have to race against throughout the career mode.
Riding, but Scott Parker is also an incredibly talented driver. After 2 years' break from racing, he made
There's plenty to do with the career, with the loose theme of a TV show splitting races up into episodes, 3, 4, sometimes 5 at a time. Each episode's handful of races hops back and forth between disciplines and different race types, but really you're just working through one race at a time, trying to complete the goals to earn 2 or 3 stars as you go. The only real roadblock to your progress comes with the 5 Masters characters, each of which has got a different specialty discipline. The blandly named Scott Parker, for instance, is the Stadium Circuit Master, and you'll have to beat him in 3 one-on-one races on stadium tracks in order to progress to the next set of episodes and eventually face the Wild Rush Master, which is the equally bland Ryan Carter. While episodes are typically unlocked by the number of stars you've earned, it's these characters that are the hard blocks before you can move on to the next set. As you'd expect from an arcade racer, there's plenty of driving assists in the game to smooth things out, and the ability to rewind time for about 5 seconds or so, which is a boon when off-road racing because this is inherently bouncy and can be quite difficult to control sometimes. You can turn those assists down or off, in fact, to get at the core handling model, and you can even tweak a car's ride height, camber and so on if you get at those settings. It's a pretty enjoyable handling model, if a bit too floaty, and without too much distinction between contrasting surfaces like tarmac and gravel which you have on the circuit tracks. But thanks to its off-roading, you can find a relatively tricky racer here if you want one. Some of that is also down to the AI, which seems to be pretty fair without too much, if any, real rubber banding. I found my happy middle ground at the medium AI setting, and I could generally get through to the front after a lap or two, depending on how they perform on a particular track. One stadium race, for example, I crashed and then came back from behind a good 4 or 5 times, but then I had to fight tooth and nail to make up a single position after the first few corners in other races. On hard difficulty, I'd always have to scrap just to stay in the middle of the pack and meet the 2-star goal, while I found some of the time trials to be a bit excessive in how low their times were for you to try and tackle. Alongside this single-player career is the standard free-play mode and time attacks, multiplayer that's unpopulated prior to launch and so we couldn't test it, and then there's a weekly challenge that will drop you into a particular car and set you loose to try and beat a set time on a particular circuit or point-to-point race. It's pretty standard stuff where you've got races on circuits and point-to-point, elimination and time attacks, but there's also a new idea in the form of smash-up, where you crash through symbol-coded boards as you set a time, with red crosses slowing you down as if you'd hit an actual object, and the green arrows letting you pass through as if they weren't even there really. It's a minor addition, certainly, but it's something that's a bit different, and it's a shame that you can't seemingly switch up the game modes in custom online and offline games so that you can explore the minimal amount of breadth that there is. The game does look great though, and Milestone's jump to Unreal Engine 4 has led to something that is a damn sight better looking than what they've had to peddle over the last few years with their ancient in-house engine. There's a wide variety of licensed vehicles and a bunch of environments to race through, from gorgeous sun-drenched tropical islands to the Alaskan wilderness, a clutch of stadiums and a string of speedcross tracks that shift from tarmac to gravel or dirt and back again. The one difference between speedcross and real-world rallycross is that you don't have a joker lap to take on your circuit. The graphics can be a little bit unpolished in places, with shadows guilty of popping into view quite suddenly and lights fading in during the nighttime races, and while standing water reflects light gorgeously, rain effects ignore the fact that you're doing 80 miles per hour and just look a bit half-hearted. The rain just keeps streaming straight down as opposed to rushing into the camera. I also feel that both of the chase cameras are set a bit too low, so you can't see the next checkpoint in cross-country races sometimes. Some might find it disappointing that the game only aims for 30 frames per second, but it is a rock-solid frame rate, and so I can't complain about it too much. There's some fun layouts to find in the game, with stadium dirt tracks that cross over themselves or split and have mirrored paths to choose between, but there's also some lazy design that creeps in. You've got a fair few figure 8 or just effectively circle tracks, and on some of the point-to-point races you've got oddly placed blockades to crash through, a rock that creeps into the track that feels out of place, and trips through ramshackle, decaying buildings. It feels like Milestone almost might have experimented with making more dynamic tracks, something like Split Second or Motorstorm Apocalypse, but then backed away and these are the remains. New arcade racers have been few and far between over the last decade, and gravel is just one attempt to reignite this genre. There's some pretty good racing to be found here with plenty of licensed cars, there's some lovely scenery, but it just doesn't get your heart pounding with excitement. Gravel might be a fairly decent racer, but its biggest sin is that despite the fireworks, despite the exotic locations, it's just a bit boring. Thanks a lot for checking out our video. Please do like, subscribe and share it, and if you do end up picking up gravel, let us know what you think of it in the comments below. You can also come visit us for our review and plenty more gaming news, previews and other things over on the6thaxis.com. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Goodbye!